Hi, folks. Welcome back to the Cryptodamus Astrology channel. It's been a while. I haven't done a video in 2023 yet, so I wanted to give you an update on some of the upcoming astrological events of January. January is kind of a quiet month in some ways. There's no really big major aspects. There's not as much drama. There's no eclipses. And I think that January will be somewhat of a more chill month than the last couple of months that we've came out of, where we did have some big eclipses in November and a lot of activity in December around the holidays. So the one thing I wanted to update you guys on was Mars is going to station direct this week on Thursday, January 12th. And that's a big energy shift that I want you guys to be aware of and be prepared for. So Mars is slowing down at 8 degrees Gemini, completing its so far 70-day retrograde period, where you might have noticed that certain issues in your life, specifically depending upon maybe the house position of Mars, transiting Mars in your natal chart, but just in general, that some things may have been more difficult. It may have been harder to make forward progress on certain issues. It's kind of like maybe we've been cycling into a headwind. So we maybe been working hard, but we haven't really been making that much progress. That's kind of the Mars retrograde vibe. There tends to be more simmering resentments and frustrations can kind of come bubbling up to the surface to be dealt with. Unfinished business having to do with asserting your goals and getting your needs met, with unresolved anger, frustration, and resentment may have come up during this time. And this stuff should be kind of coming to a resolution now that Mars is going to station and go direct again. And so things will feel slowly, in the week that Mars stations, that Mars energy is stronger. So that can bring up more, again, that can bring up more anger, conflicts, arguments, and so forth like that. It can bring up more aggression. That's the malefic side of Mars. However, Mars stationing can also sometimes bring up more courage, more confidence, more vitality and energy. And that would be more of the positive side of Mars. So all of these can be felt as being stronger depending on individual situations. So on the 12th, Mars will finally make that station to direct and start moving forward again. However, it will be stuck at 8 degrees Gemini for about 10 days. So it's going to take some time for this Mars to really start moving forward again. And it's going to take some time for us to feel like life is moving forward again. But overall, this is a positive energy shift because Mars direct is just less jangly, less difficult, and less challenging than Mars retrograde. January features 3 planetary stations to direct, actually. So Mars is going to station direct this Thursday on January 12th. And then Mercury is going to slow down at 8 degrees, also at 8 degrees Capricorn. And it's going to station there on January 18th, Wednesday, January 18th. And then, both Mars and Mercury will finally be direct. I talked about this in the last couple videos. And that's going to be a much more favorable time period, I think, with both Mars and Mercury going direct after the 18th. It would be much more beneficial time for starting new projects, launching big new projects, planning new events, and just generally speaking, taking more bold, decisive, or risky actions after Mars and especially Mercury go direct on January 18th. Now, interestingly, Mercury and Mars are going to station in what we call a quincunx angle, which is the 150-degree angle. And it's not that favorable. It's a bit problematic. This is the chart for Mars station, direct at 8 degrees 7 Gemini. Okay, now if we toggle this ahead a couple of days to the 18th, you can see here or actually even before that. So right around January 15th, Mercury will hit 8 degrees and it will begin to make this quincunx or inconjunct 150-degree aspect that is, one also of simmering tension. A quincunx has to do with signs that don't have anything in common. They're not in the same element, they're not in the same triplicity, they don't really speak the same language. So this is, quincunxes are squares are very like squares and oppositions are tense aspects that usually result in a crisis, which forces you to resolve the issue. Whereas the quincunx is more of a simmering tension that never really erupts into the crisis. And so, in that way, it's less acute and less difficult than the square because it doesn't erupt into the crisis. However, it also can sometimes not get resolved. It's harder to resolve because it never comes to a head and it just keeps that simmering problem below the surface. So this is going to be in effect for, I don't know, about a week. Mercury's going to go direct here on the 18th at 8 degrees, going to come back and make that exact quincunx again to Mars right around the 20th. And then finally around the 22nd, Mercury is going to go to 9 degrees and that quincunx will end. And then a couple of days later, finally, around the 24th, Mars will move off that 8th degree, which would have been at all of January. So if you have anything at 8 degrees air, you're going to get a trine from Mars for almost the entire month of January. And that would be pretty favorable. Now, if you have anything at 8 degrees mutable, it would be more difficult. It means that you're going to get a square for almost the entire, or an opposition, if it was Sagittarius, for almost the entire month of January. But by the time we get to January 24th, both Mars and Mercury are finally really starting to move forward again. And I think that overall, that will be, generally speaking, more favorable. Another planetary ingress is going to be on the 22nd when Uranus is going to station direct. And that's also been retrograde since August. So we'll really feel the planetary energy of Uranus basically in that, I would say, especially in that 10-day period, the 5 days before and after is when you're going to feel those outer planet stations the most. And that means we can see really chaotic, surprising, and unexpected world events, and also events in our personal lives. And that could be anything from, situations like when Uranus stationed retrograde. This is a very memorable one. In August of 2021, we saw the sudden collapse of the Afghan government. So that's a kind of a classic example. We can see sudden freak storms, hurricanes and tornadoes. We can see volcanic eruptions and earthquakes also during Uranus stations events. We can also see really dramatic, extreme moves in the markets when Uranus goes direct because it has that very sudden, dramatic, electrifying energy. And that can be either up or down, really. That particularly doesn't give us enough information. However, we could expect more volatility, perhaps, during that period, especially between the 15th, or I would say the 17th and the 31st in the 10-day period around Uranus station. And Uranus will station at 1455, I believe. Uranus will station at 1456 or 1455 Taurus. Now, interestingly, in my analysis of Vladimir Zelensky that I did in my 2023 report, the president of Ukraine, well, his natal Mercury is at 1456 Capricorn, which means that Uranus will station in an exact trine to his natal Mercury. And we should look to see what happens in the Ukraine during that time. It should be quite favorable for Zelensky and Ukraine. Perhaps he pulls off another surprise victory on the battlefield. Perhaps he pulls off a surprise some kind of surprise deal of support from his allies, from his NATO allies, from the US or Germany, which they've already signaled they're going to be sending him new high-tech weapons like new tanks and Patriot missiles defense system to take out the Russian missile attacks. So we're already starting to see that, but I would be specifically around the 22nd or the days leading up to the 22nd and right after it, I would be looking for events specifically related to Ukraine and to President Zelensky, favorable circumstances for him. So just to recap it, we've got Mars stationed direct on the 12th. And interestingly enough, that's the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. That is the most widely watched inflation data report that comes out monthly. So Mars station days can be kind of challenging because you've got that malefic Mars energy. And we could feel more argumentative. We could have more conflicts. But like I said, we could also have more confidence and energy with Mars moving direct. So it's going to be interesting to see that CPI inflation report. Then on the January 18th, Mercury is going to station direct. And finally, this overlapping period of Mercury and Mars retrograde together is going to be completed. And then on January 22nd, the planet Uranus, the planet of sudden, exciting, unexpected surprises, is going to station direct and possibly bring some chaotic surprise events, world events, and also for financial markets. So that's pretty much the main thing I wanted to talk about today. And I think that the energy overall is going to be more favorable. I think it's just going to start to feel better as soon as Mercury goes direct on the 18th, and especially once we have a chance for Mercury and Mars to get moving again. I think things in our lives will also feel like they're moving forward again more easily. However, we do want to watch out for that long inconjunct quincunx between Mars at 8 degrees Gemini and Mercury at 8 degrees Capricorn. And that's going to last, like I said, for about a week between, I think, January 15th and January 21st, something like that. Another event, actually, I want to mention is the new moon on January 21st. It's a new moon at 1 degrees Aquarius. And it also seems like a kind of a favorable lunation because it's in a nice trine to Mars, which is now direct. It's in a nice kind of slightly wider sextile to Jupiter in Aries. And it's ruled by Saturn, which is still in Aquarius and has dignity. So I think overall that's also favorable. So I think that generally speaking, things look pretty good moving forward here in January right now. The only thing, as I mentioned, is the quincunx of Mars and Mercury, and also the station of Uranus. While it can bring positive surprises, it can also bring chaotic, unexpected events that we should watch for as well around January 22nd. So I hope that's a kind of helpful overview of some of the main astrological events of January 2023. And thanks for joining me again. And I hope to do another video in the next couple of weeks. Have a great day.